I'm going to actually probably let y'all do most of the talking, quite frankly, is what I'm thinking. So we'll go ahead and roll in some intro music and, get this puppy rolling. So far, every time you've said hit it.
Oh, hit it.
Hello, everyone. Once again, thanks for joining us for another edition of ShiftLess. And we do put the less in shift here at ShiftLess. I can assure you of that. As always, joined by my good friend, Chef Brad Green. How you doing, sir?
What's going on?
And we have a pretty special guest. Last week's episode, Brad and I touched on Unbound and some of the drama that's unfolded there, the state of the event from our perspective as outsiders. And Brad was cool enough to find somebody for us to talk to that might have an insider's perspective. Would you be so kind as to introduce today's guest for us?
That's my buddy, Caleb Wills, also known as DJ Khaled.
DJ Khaled.
Man, he went and did Unbound, as they call it these days.
That's right.
Did the 200, and I can't wait. I have purposefully not talked to him about this because I want it to be fresh. I want all my reactions to be authentic, and I want to just take it all in like the normal format. So, I mean, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
You showed up?
Yeah. Drove up Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like getting into a town for a long distance race like the day of.
Yeah.
It just feels weird.
Get the lay of the
got
land.
in Thursday. I stayed at the dorms, which I recommend.
Yeah.
If you can get into the dorms, because it's a half mile or so from the start and finish.
That's kick-ass.
And so the entire time you're there, you can get on your bike, and if you want to go to see the expo or whatever movie they're showing.
Did they still have the racers meeting in the theater?
I think so. I didn't go.
Oh, okay. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, dorm's great. If you go and you can get into the dorm, they'll have maybe 2 or 3 days after you get the first email that says, hey, you're registered or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you'll get, there's some lodging information, especially on their website. And you basically have to just get in line, almost like buying concert tickets.
Yeah.
As soon as
that's a new thing. I don't remember that being offered when I went.
But they were great. Honestly, the food's included in your, in the cost, but it's great because it's convenient, but it's not the best food, but it's good enough.
Sure.
I just like the convenience of it. I didn't have to pack a bunch of food to cook, or I didn't have to leave to go find a restaurant.
It's not fam level cooking then.
It's slightly below that. And then I rode my bike into town. Into town, it's half a mile away.
Yeah.
Went in to check in, which was a very smooth. It was really quick. Like I was in and out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's when I found out. That's when I got my curveball, because up until that point, I would have sworn I signed up for the 100-mile.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do the 100-mile because I want to be back to watch the pros come in.
Yeah.
I've never been in a situation to where I could stand as a spectator and watch that finish, because those guys come in from almost a little over a quarter of a mile away. You can see them turn down the main street. And I was in line, told them my name, and they couldn't find it. And then they came back and they said, well, you're signed up for the 200. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And they asked me if I had a
support crew.
A support crew, which I found out in the race. Like when they say you have to have a support crew, you cannot finish without that, because you get 2 neutral water stops and you get 2 check-ins, and those check-ins are timed. Mm-hmm. And there's no one there from the race organizers. Like you have to have a group help you,
right?
Because you can't carry enough food and water.
Yeah.
I only saw. I'm not saying there's only one convenience store, but I only saw one.
Yeah. By
the way that the route came through, and that wasn't until mile 124, I think.
Yeah.
Was when I saw it. So anyway, they asked me if I had a support crew, and I said no, but I'll figure something out. Luckily, I have some friends at Shimano that offered to carry some food for me. They were absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Took good care of me. Every time I got into the checkpoints, they would take a look at my bike.
Yeah.
Pull off the mud, lube the chain. So at that point, doing 100 miles is not that for some. I mean, I'm not fast, but I can go and do 100 miles. So I did not train for this at all. My training consisted of riding with you, Brad, for a couple times during the week, and then I just got back from Rule of 3.
Yeah.
So I felt okay. So my goal going into it at that point was like no other expectation but going and having a good time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made the ride enjoyable, and that's probably why I'm not so mad about the mud.
Yeah.
Right?
So you were just there. You were just like, let's do it.
Yeah.
But you've also been through a lot of shit too.
Yeah, and I think that prepares you. I never panicked. I never got upset. I never got mad. I mean, it was frustrating. Like,
sure,
you'd have to stop and take your mud off. But it didn't ruin my ride.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it made the experience incredible. And it really and truly, like, I really think there was only maybe 5 to 6 total miles out of 200 that had a lot of mud.
Yeah.
I think that first section really frustrated a lot of people.
Yeah, because it came so quick.
It came quick, but here's the thing. By the time my group got there, I was in the middle of the pack pretty much. And by the time I got there, the sides of the road, like the edge of the road to where the barbed wire was fairly flat for the most part. And it had grass that was about knee high tall. But it looked like what a crop circle would look like when they mowed it, like flattened it down. Everything was absolutely flat. You could have ridden on that. And I thought about hopping on my bike and riding it. The problem was there were people walking for as far as the eye can see. And you don't want to be that guy trying to ride up behind people.
On your back.
Yeah. What are you supposed to say? On your left? Had like 1,000 people in front of you?
Lead her back.
Yeah. I will say I still don't understand how the pros rode through it.
Yeah.
I was listening to the Tour Divide daily recap this morning that Josh Ibbett was talking about. And he was kind of talking about feathering through the mud because they're going through some mud. And I don't really know what that means. I still don't understand how they did it. Because that stuff was bad. The mud was bad.
Well,
when they talk about feathering, they just talk about going light. I mean, not making power moves, not turning, not braking.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to like tiptoe through it.
That makes sense if you're riding on flat, but this was probably two fairly not significant climbs, but it was definitely you can't feather up this. You're gonna have to put some torque into it.
Yeah, and it depends on the mud composition too.
Yeah,
you know,
like our trails around here. You know, when they're muddy, the first bike that goes through doesn't tear it up. It's the following bikes. So the leaders going through, what you saw was not the mud they saw.
Probably.
They churned it up into the super soft, super deep stuff that everybody after them had. No, make no mistake. I'm sure it still took finesse and skill on their part. No ifs, ands, or buts. But I doubt they ran into the same quagmire that the regular riders came across. And hate to interrupt, but before I lose track of it, you really touched on something that I want to get a better grip around. So was that a rude awakening for you that you were going to have to do 200 miles, or was that just go with the flow?
Yes and no. At first, I never panicked about it. I thought, well, okay, I'm going to do that. And I even texted Brad and I was like, well, guess what? And
you called me.
I called him. That's right. I called Brad and I also, I texted Josh Dean because he had texted me a couple of days before asking about it. And I'll be honest, my initial thought was, because I went through a couple of different stages. I was like, okay, if I do this, it's not a big deal. My concern was like, how am I going to get fed? Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you, unless you have someone, they have support crew. If you can't bring somebody, you can hire people. I think it's like $85 for the day or something like that. So you can hire, they have crews that you can hire.
Yeah.
I don't see how anyone, like, unless you carry a giant backpack, unless you're carrying a gallon of water, because it's a long way through those stops and it got really hot in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
You're not going to do very well. Okay. So going back, once I decided to do the 200, or as I was thinking about it, I thought, well, my initial idea was just to ride 100. Well, I'll make it to the first checkpoint, which is 124.
That's the first checkpoint?
Checkpoint. You have a water drop. No. I have it right here.
See, when I did it, it was like 60, 40, 60.
First water drop was 41 miles.
Yeah.
First checkpoint was 79.
Okay. Yeah.
So the second water drop was 125. So I thought, I'll reevaluate what's going on then.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't like I was in a position to go, I'm going to quit. It was just like, I'm not really prepared for this. I'm okay not being prepared, but I'm going to go out and see what I can do. And by the time I got to that area, I kept feeling better. Yeah. I guess we'll probably skip around in the chronology of all this, but by mile 95, it was blazing hot.
Yeah.
Like my Garmin, which you can't rely on the Garmin temperature because I think it also reads off the surface of the Garmin. It was like 105. 101.
What time did you guys start real quick?
We start at 7.
The 200 started at 7 a.m.
Start at 7.
Okay. And so when you hit mile 95, what time was it? Around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I didn't really look at the clock.
Okay. I'm just curious.
It's probably it.
What did your average speed end up being for the whole 200?
So for the whole 200, I think it was 11.
Okay.
But there was a walking section. You also get text updates. So I could also see my average. They would text you as you went through the timing because at every checkpoint there was a timer. Wow. A timing in and a timing out, I believe. I think they were both in and out.
That is wild.
Because if you don't make it by a certain time, they take you off the course. Right. So like the last checkpoint, I rolled in the last checkpoint 15 minutes, 20 minutes before the cutoff. Oh, wow. But you had 5 hours to ride 42 miles. So wouldn't that be a deal? So I don't really remember what time that was.
I'm just curious. I was just trying to get an idea.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about speed. I really think taking out those walking sections, my average would have been closer to about 12 or 13.
Sure.
I went back and looked because the last 15 miles, I felt like I hadn't been on the bike at all. And I went and looked and my average on the last 15 miles was like 16 miles an hour.
Your fastest average?
Yeah, it's my fastest average. And that could have pavement, but I was also getting excited that I was getting done. But I felt good. Like
cooler temperatures
I felt fantastic. Well, so funny thing about the cooler temperatures is, it got blazing hot around mile 90, 95, something like that. And I topped a hill and there was a house with a rare occasion that they had these massive shade trees. Yeah. And there was probably 25, 30 people under those shade trees. And I was talking with them and majority of them were calling it out. They're like, it's too hot. I can't handle it. And so I sat down, got something to drink, just enjoyed the moment, watched all these people ride by. And that's the cool thing is you're never alone. Yeah. I was never once by myself.
You're in the middle of nowhere, but you're never alone.
So just watching people come through and then I was like, okay, I stopped for 10, maybe 5 minutes, got on the bike, started rolling. And about 10 minutes later, I turned around and looked behind me and in front of me was just bright blue sky. It looked like a Microsoft Windows wallpaper, right? All the rolling green hills and the blue sky. But behind me it was black. Yeah. And within 5 minutes of that, the temperature started dropping and rode in pouring rain for about 35, 40 miles. But that temperature drop made everything. Like it changed the entire thing. But the rain was rough, but there was no mud. Once you got out of the town, in those sections, wherever we were at that point, mud was not an issue. I mean, it was coming up onto you and onto the bike, but it wasn't that sticky mud. We were flying through that area. It was
B roads, not C roads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the water was coming down so fast off those hills. I remember looking down, and as I was riding up, there was half an inch of water coming down. So had a little bit of resistance there.
Like a salmon swimming upstream.
Yeah, exactly. And then, it rained for a long time. Lightning got a little hairy there for a minute. But I just enjoyed every single bit of it. Yeah. It was just, I don't know.
It's pretty country up there. It's hard to describe. That's what I was trying to tell you. There's like nothing there, but somehow it's gorgeous. Yeah. Like just the lack of telephone poles and fences. You know, it's just grass and the random tree.
Was this your first trip to Emporia?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, this was my first time. Yeah.
I did a similar thing the first year in 2011. We me and a couple of guys, there was a random loafing shed, and we got in it with all the hay because it was so freaking hot. And I mean, I was seeing stars at some point. It was so hot, you know?
Yeah.
But same thing. We were just in there going, oh my God. And then the storms came. So
funny you mentioned a hay shed. Mm-hmm. When the rain kind of slowed down, I was riding along and I noticed a woman on the right side of the road. And as I rode past, you do what you always do. You ask if you're okay, if you need any help. And most of the time they go, yeah, I'm fine. And she didn't.
Right.
She shook her head and said no. So I turned around and I checked on her and I said, are you okay? Are you hurt? And I felt awful for her. She just said, I'm just so emotional. And she broke down, ugly tears. And I said, okay, are you sick? Are you hurt? She goes, no, my stomach's upset. I think I drank too much electrolytes or whatever. But she was cooked. Like but at that point, it was she was probably 110 miles, 115 miles in at that point. Mm-hmm. So it could have been the same shed. Yeah. So I said, okay, she goes, I have someone coming to pick me up. I don't know what to do. I'm not disoriented. I just don't know what to do. I said, okay. So I got her backpack off and her helmet, and like 50 yards up the road was a
loafing shed.
Yeah. So I walked her into that. There was 2 guys in there already that had bailed. One guy had just like a massive cut. His elbow was split wide open. And so they had some just clean water with no electrolytes. So we gave it to that. And the thing is though, like you go through those emotions.
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely, and I told her, I was like, it's an absolutely normal thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a couple of different, there was highs and lows. Sure. And then there was just absolute
euphoria.
The peak euphoria, almost like you can feel the drug running through you.
So was this your first 200-mile day, or have you had 200?
No, I've done a couple of big days. Okay. I think it was definitely my first single day race that was a 200 mile.
You did 200 miles the first day of RAT, didn't you?
Yeah, I did 212.
Yeah.
Slept for about an hour or so, and then did another 110 or something like that. And then I did a couple of shakedown rides for RAT that were in the 170s, 200s, but that was no goal in mind other than.
Are you basically always at a training level where you can crack out stuff like that, or is that something you have to prepare for weeks, months? What's your process for stuff like this?
It depends on how fast I want to be. Josh Dean calls it stubbornness.
Yeah, I was just about to say it depends on.
Yeah, it depends on how stubborn you are.
Yeah,
because I saw a lot of really, really fast-looking guys quit very early.
Sure,
guys that were super trim and no fat on super fast bikes that didn't have a lot of bags on it.
You can say what you want about the shit that we go out and ride, but there's a lot of mental fortitude.
That's exactly what it is.
When we go ride,
it's the majority of it's mental.
Yeah,
from my perspective,
absolutely, it is mentally toughness outweighs speed any day.
Yeah. You can be the fastest, fittest racer out there, but if you have no idea what it takes to go over 100 miles of rough gravel, to go beyond that limit.
Yeah.
Because once you get to 101, you're having to fight those same demons that you're facing right then for the next 99 miles. And that's what people don't overcome.
Well, and I think it with the pro level guys whining about the mud that happened at, what was it, mile 9 or 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like those guys don't normally face adversity like that. They train on probably smooth roads and just go out and put in miles. They're not used to dealing with adversity. And I think that's what kind of separates the men from the boys, if you will. Because, I mean, if you go out there and you're like, this is no big deal, then you're already a leg up, regardless of fitness level,
Yeah, it seemed like if you look at the list of possible challenges, weather, mechanical, mud, heat, all those things, those major check boxes are almost like what people are looking for to have a reason to quit.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just go into it and go, I'm just going to ride my bike. But here's the thing. I'm not a fast guy. My goal was never to go in and, I did not care. I don't want to be last.
But you're strong.
But I would love to be in the middle. That's a goal. If I ride my normal pace on things like that, I'm probably going to be in the middle. And I tried to stay especially for the first 100, I definitely tried to stay in like barely into zone 3.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep it steady.
So you're watching heart rate the whole time?
I did do that. That's something that I paid attention to, is my heart rate. And I will say, I did not.
I guess you're about 95-ish.
For what?
Heart rate. I'm talking about Rich.
Yeah.
Seriously,
so what is your zone 3? What is
my
your
zone
heart rate?
3 is about
135.
It's about 130, 135,
Okay.
something like that. So I obviously you peak up and down a little bit, but I tried to stay that so much so that I did walk the 2 biggest climbs.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. If you're in a sprint race, if you're in a 60-mile or 100K spinistry race, walking up a hill is going to impact your place and your time.
You're going to lose
significantly.
spots.
You're going to get loose spots.
Yeah.
But some of those climbs were so far into the race, I got off my bike, and I will stand by this. I'll argue anyone over this. If you're in the position I am, that you're just wanting to go out and ride and keep your fitness, finish strong, walk a hill.
Yeah.
Because you're going to spend about a quarter of the energy to walk up that hill at half the speed that people are riding it.
Yeah.
And every single time I did it, I had people pass me on the hill. But as soon as I got on my bike, I flew right past them because they were having a hard time getting over. There's no point in burning those matches on a race like that. It's unless you're a pro.
Unless there's a cute kid at the top of the hill taking pictures.
Well, that's true. You gotta flex hard for that. Yeah. Yeah, I have no problem anymore doing that.
I totally understand what you're saying. I did a very similar thing at the towards the end of Unbound. When I did it, we were like mile 180, 170, something like that. That's where all the big hills came. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have the matches to burn at the time, so I did it. But I was also running a tiny cluster. I think I was running like a 20 or 12-26 on my freaking Willets. But I would do the same thing. I would get off and I'd be walking up, and I would almost feel like ashamed when I was walking, and I would have people just barely pass me. I mean, they're going like, maybe 1 or 2 miles an hour faster. Yeah.
Struggling.
And you can tell they're just like pouring everything into it. And then I would get back on my bike and just come by them like nothing.
On something like that, like it just doesn't make sense to
unless you're battling for position.
I mean, that's a completely different thing, and I totally get that. But I wasn't doing that. My goal was to enjoy the ride and just to make the 205.
Yeah. And sometimes it just feels good to get off your bike and walk anyways at that point.
Yeah.
It's like standing up and leaning into a bigger gear, just stretching different muscles. And
it felt good. I don't like wearing, as James Harnish would say, I don't like wearing a water backpack, but you kind of have to for this as well. Yeah. And I kept it pretty full. Like I filled it to the max every single time. On sometimes when you use it, like you're not going to be out super long, but you adjust the weight on it.
2 liter?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many bottles?
I had 2 water bottles.
Yeah.
The 2 water bottles were mixed, double concentrated tailwind.
Yeah. And then straight water
in the backpack. In the backpack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that water, especially when it's that hot and you're that isolated, it's almost like a comfort, like a blanket,
Oh yeah.
The last thing you want to do is run out of water. Then you start to spiral.
I did a good job with, it's taken me a long time to get good at taking in water.
Yeah.
Right? Because I would always only drink when I was thirsty. And that's if you drink when you're thirsty, you're going to get in trouble real quick. But getting off the bike with a heavy backpack, walking up a hill, it get a little bit of relief, and then you hop back on and you go on your way, and then you pass all those people that rode up every time.
Yeah.
So how many hours was 2 liters and your 2 bottles good for you?
With the exception of the first water stop, because it took us an hour and a half to walk, right? It would have only taken me, I don't know, 3 hours to get to the 3 to get to, but I think it took about 4.5, and I was still had plenty. So I don't remember the hours between each section,
but it's probably 5 or 6 hours of water is your guess, or fluids.
Yeah, I was definitely taking on more from that second quarter between the first water drop, the first check-in, and then when the rain came in. That first check-in and before the rain came in, it got hot really, really fast. I was surprised how hot it got.
Yeah. It
felt hotter than what it had the 2 days leading up.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it did. It felt a lot hotter.
Yeah.
What is your hydration schedule? Since you said it's taken you a while to learn to drink on time. How do you accomplish that now?
When I try to remind myself or get into a habit of if I'm getting ready to, if I can see a hill coming up, take a big. It's not about that drink of that tailwind right before that hill is going to help you, but you're in a position to where you're not breathing hard. It's going to be easier. You're not going to, take a big gulp, get ready to go up that hill, and then one down. Like that cadence seems to work for me because
you're creating a routine.
I don't like drinking when I'm already breathing hard because then you're not helping yourself get more air in because you're taking that pause in your breathing.
Yeah.
I set a timer on my Garmin also to eat every hour, and then I try to drink at least 2 or 3 times between then. The other thing that's I've started doing is I used to make the mistake of not finishing all my fluids before I get to a stop. That's not helping you. Like if I know I'm 20 miles out from the next spot, like I'm trying to drink everything I possibly can. Yeah, because you're drinking for ahead. You're not drinking for right then and there.
Yeah, it's a decent plan. As long as you don't make yourself uncomfortable by drinking too much.
Yeah.
But I could get behind that for sure.
Yeah.
What did you eat the majority of the time? Was it everything, or were you kind of targeted?
I made a mistake by not packing enough salty foods.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of threw me off. That was a part of the 200-mile switch from 100. 100, I just packed enough. I really didn't need to pack a ton of food because there was one checkpoint in the middle that I could have gotten. So I only needed to carry a little bit on me. Yeah. After about 5 hours on a bike, I can't really eat sugary foods very well. Yeah. I just, because it's a complete turnoff, and I forgot to pack them.
I'm the same way. Like when you get to like hour 6, and beyond, you just have to eat what sounds good, Yep. So
luckily, the Shimano guys had chips and salty foods and snacks and stuff. Yeah. But prior to that, I packed. I keep a Ziploc of peanut M&Ms and cashews. Mm-hmm. And then I had like these peanut butter and date bars that Kroger makes that I like. They seem to hold up well in the sun. Mm-hmm. They don't break up from your bike rattling around like a hard granola bar, and they don't melt. I had some scratch chews that were good. Some tortillas. Yeah. And I think that was just a mix of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You're eating just straight tortillas while you're riding?
Yeah. I get the little mini ones and I cut them.
You don't find those hard to swallow?
Well, I'm taking small bites. Yeah. Like I take the small ones and then I quarter those. Yeah. And so I have little quarter bites of them. Yeah. But at the bag drops, I had more of the same things, and then of course one of them I had a honey bun. Yeah. Which is you can't go on a long ride with one of those. And then the other one, my big treat was the s'more Pop-Tart. Yeah. And then I had a Coke in each one, and like a Powerade.
Dude, there's something about that Coke, like when you're that deep into a ride. Yeah. It's that burst of sweetness, but it's also, for me, it's the effervescence, the carbonation to help break up your stomach a little bit,
Yeah. And I rarely, if ever drink a sugared soda outside of riding, but man, those Cokes are magical.
Yeah, they really are.
I can assure you, us handing out cold Coca-Colas at Spinistry events on those longer rides, or where people are coming back to staging and then going out on that has just a couple sips of Coca-Cola has probably turned around 80% of our mid-pack quitters. Oh, okay, I'm good. I'm going. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
Don Booker will tell you the story about when we went and did Chupacabra down in Mexico. And he said, I was on death's doorstep, and this priest come out of the church. He gave me this peanut butter cookie and this ice cold Coca-Cola, and I was resurrected.
Booker doesn't have an ounce of drama in him, does he?
But the Coca-Cola, like I'm not a soda drinker on the regular at all. But when I get like mile 70, 80, 90, that Coca-Cola is like everything.
Yeah.
So we did so when we went and did Unbound, and I guess I should have, I didn't think about it at the time, but that's what we did is we had we went to Walmart or wherever, and we just bought all kinds of food that was like, this may be good, this might be good. Because when when you're at mile 150 and you pull in, you have no clue what you're going to want to eat. Mm-hmm. Whether you're going to want something salty or sweet or something, fresh fruit or whatever. So we just had like this kind of smorgasbord of stuff. So you'd have something to choose from instead of going, well, this is all I have to eat, because your body starts telling you what it wants,
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want a slice of watermelon or bag of Lay's potato chips. So
yeah. And especially when it gets hot and you start losing electrolytes and your body's just craving salt.
Yeah.
Man, a Coke and a bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So you said this was your first Unbound, your first trip to Emporia. Was it in line with your expectations, or were you caught off guard by anything, or was it as that? Because we're going to get there, but I mean, obviously, a lot of the after talk is people's, for lack of a better term, expectations weren't met from a lot of the participants. What's your perspective on that? I didn't
have a lot of expectations of what the town would have or what was going on before or after. Like, I was just going to have a good time and explore it. And for someone like me who's known about it for years but never experienced it, it was like, I'm here, I'm going to do the thing.
Right.
The bike expo was cool. I mean, it was more bike brands out there. It's you see so many people that you've seen in videos,
mm-hmm.
whether it's a pro or whether it's someone who stitches your Sodero bags.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to talk to that guy. I have a custom Sodero frame bag that I specifically asked them to make it 3.5 inches tall. And they emailed me and they're like, are you sure you want it that? I'm like, I know exactly what I want. And they're like, okay. So they made me this little skinny bag, and I rode up to him, and he's like, I know that bag. So getting to talk to the guy that sewed your bike bag is cool.
Yeah. And I know exactly where you're coming from there. My favorite frame bag I have is about 3 3/4.
Yeah.
And just super long.
Yeah.
But
bottles come in and out.
Bottles up and down, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of room in there to stow the stuff out.
Oh, yeah. I can put, like I said, it's 3.5 inches tall, and I can stuff a jacket, food, a pump.
For when it's jacket off
a tube,
weather.
Or when the weather gets bad and it's jacket off weather.
Yeah.
And it'll hold tent poles too if you need it to.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's a good idea. So that was cool. I had a good time rolling around. I'm not a super social person in the fact that I'm going to go to every booth and talk to every booth, but I talked to the Garmin people, and because I just updated my Garmin to the new solar. Had some questions about that. You get to see, the cool thing is you get to see things you don't normally see, like tire selection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all the tire people were there. So you see every tire, all the tires you want to look at, which, by the way,
Vittoria. Yeah.
They didn't have it there.
Mm-mm. But did they tell you they were going to?
No, Lachlan Morton had one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Lachlan Morton had 2 different tires on his bike.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was, they do all the videos and the photos of the bikes of Unbound.
Mm-hmm.
I watched his little video that he posted. And he just nonchalantly, randomly said, I'm running a Vittoria Mezcal 44 in the front.
Yeah.
And my ears just perked up. They didn't have it there for sale.
Yeah, they released it like 1 week later.
I'm about to say, I just saw that on their website the other day. So that wasn't available prior?
It was not. And there was it turns out there was a lot of tech and a lot of components and a lot of bike frames that were used for the first time out there.
Speaking of which, did you guys see this clip that just came out? I don't even know what race it was, but there was a pile up in the peloton, and the guy's bottom bracket completely sheared off the bike, and his cranks are laying on the ground.
I did not see that.
It was a prototypical bike, and the bottom bracket shell was it was carbon, and I guess too many watts or bad design. So this pile-up's unpiling, and you see this guy collecting his stuff, and he reaches down and grabs his cranks.
So
bottom bracket,
wheels still attached, everything's fine, except the one thing you have to have is gone. It's a Strider bike at that point.
Yeah, I don't think that's a wattage issue. I think that falls into the realm of bad design.
It was awful. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
That mezcal is going to be amazing. That's going to be a
okay. Walk idiots like me through what were prior to the 44? What were the mezcal sizings? What
225s,
2.1 or no 2.25 is the smallest
up to a
one.
2.6.
Yeah, 2.25, 2.35, and 2.6.
It's definitely the Ramble bikepacking tire of choice.
So now they've got 44s and 50s, right?
I think it's just a 44 is all I saw.
I thought I saw a 50,
oh man,
but
a 50,
I could be wrong.
Amazing.
50 would be absolutely tits.
Yeah,
man, I'm almost sure I saw 50.
What does 50 work out to? It's like a 1.5?
1.85 or something.
Isn't that big? Okay. But still, that's a
no, I'm thinking of 55. Yeah. It's about that.
I think a 50 is around 1.5.
Yeah, maybe, that's probably right.
Maybe I don't know.
I don't know.
And
I went to art school. I'm not a math scientist.
Yeah. It's all relative. So, and you brought up a good point, and I think from maybe some of the blowback we're hearing from people that aren't happy. Well, let me qualify this on the front end, because in case anyone's hearing me talking, there's Kevin just bashing Unbound and Lifetime, which people have that perception. I don't bash them. That's the beauty of gravel. There's different events for everybody.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's when people think I'm bashing them or that they're bashing us or whatever else. I've just pointed out we do things differently. There's nothing wrong with what they do. You brought up a good point that, well, being aware of the event for years and following it for years and knowing people that have done it for years, probably you had some pretty realistic expectations going in. My guess is there's a lot of people that they're just hearing about Unbound the last year or two or three at the most. So they don't have those years of, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of friends that did it in 2011 and it was muddy then. I had a bunch of friends that did it in 2015. It was muddy then. Some of these newer people may not have any frame of reference along those lines. Did you talk to other riders or spend time with other riders, or were you just antisocial, Caleb, and talking to bike industry folks?
I did a shakedown ride on Friday, sponsored by Chamois, and it was the largest group ride I've ever been in my life. There was like 500 people on it. Yeah. It was incredible. Talked to a couple of different people. Cool. Talked to a guy out of Maine that had just started a clothing company called Pineberry. I bought one of his shirts.
Shout out to Pineberry.
I can't remember the guy's name. Anyway, super nice guy. You know, we talked about it a lot. No one ever really talked about what their expectations were. I did speak to there's a couple of guys that were in the dorm area that I talked to, but I will say this, and I'm not saying this is a mistake at all. This is not, I'm not saying they're doing it wrong, but being that I'm in advertising, brand positioning is part of my wheelhouse. If I were involved in Unbound, I would position it to be a little more difficult than what it says. What you pointed out was kind of an aha moment. They don't really say it's difficult.
They don't set that expectation themselves.
Right. And I think that is and I'm speaking on behalf of the people who may be new to gravel, who have, they've been in it for a year or so and they go, oh, I'm going to sign up for this big race. And like your races, you don't shy away from how hard it is.
Long, hard, and dirty.
I mean, it's literally in your tagline. And Unbound, I think, and I'm not saying they're making a mistake, but it's almost like they're positioning more about the size of the race and how big and how many people are going to be in, and they don't really focus on truly how difficult it is.
I think it's intentional the way they leave it. I think they assume that it's understood.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a tongue-in-cheek. Like, come ride 200 miles with us in the Flint Hills.
I guarantee you.
But I never got anything in the other direction. I never saw it. Like, if you look at Rule of Three, it's not overt. They don't go out of their way to talk about how difficult it is.
Yeah.
But they literally, it's in the description.
Yeah.
It will test your ability on your bike like nothing you've ever done.
Well, I think, and I don't know how Unbound is structured now, but when I did it, there was this litany of rules and guidelines. And like, in order to line up on the start line, you had to have a working headlight, and you had to have, like, it was all this different stuff that you had to meet that kind of made you stop and go, man, this is kind of a big deal if I have to have all this shit, So I think that was the way they kind of conveyed it back then, but it was more of a CYA thing,
Yeah. your oldness is showing here.
How so?
You have the expectation that people are going to read all those words. No, I'm absolutely serious.
Yeah. No, I took it serious.
Caleb signed up for our events, so he sees my final notes email that I keep as brief as possible, and I say the first line is "read every word, please."
Yeah.
And 80% of the people don't read those, and that's like super succinct.
Yeah.
And
I was riding with a guy around, I don't know, maybe 80, 70, 80. I honestly don't remember. He's riding up.
Mile 80
mile
or
80?
80 years old?
Mile 80. Sorry.
Okay.
And he comes up and he goes, "Hey, what route are you on?" I went, "The 200. He goes, "The 200? And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I'm on the 100. And I went, "Well, you missed your turn." "Oh, no, I didn't." I went, "Oh, yeah, you definitely missed your turn." I said, "Because did you not see at the bottom of the hill after the first water drop at mile 40, there's literally a sign that says 200 this way, 100 straight."
Right.
And it's like, again, it's like, just, I don't understand that. I don't understand how someone could now.
Yeah, if I was doing the 100, I would be like eyes wide open.
Yeah, well, it's literally on the route too.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the route on Ride with the GPS, you see the water drop, and right after the water drop, it's the 100 mile split.
Yeah.
I've missed turns before on spin history races, right? Sometimes you just don't see the arrow. But to like, I don't do a ton of research. I like the adventure, so I don't try to memorize every single thing. And that's good and bad. I can put myself in a
navigation
bad
is one of those things that escapes a lot of people, even with the high fitness level, and that goes back to mental fortitude too. Yeah, some people, if they miss a turn and they have to turn around and go 2 miles out of their way, they're automatically just
Well, and he said, "Well, what am I going to do?" And I went, I think we were probably within 30 or 40 miles from the next checkpoint, something like that. And I was like, "Just ride to the checkpoint." Yeah. You know, you're not going to ride in there if you tell somebody I made a mistake. I don't have a support crew. I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. No one's going to turn you down.
Right.
Like someone's going to take care of you. I will say that like everyone was super nice. People took care of each other.
Yeah. There's a great camaraderie there, and there's something to be said about that. I want to call it anxiety, but it's like this cloud of anxious energy that's just ever present in that town because everybody's happy to be there. And they're excited to see what's going to happen. You know, like you're talking about that group ride the day before. There's just this big like cloud of excitement going on, you know. But before we get too far away from tires, I wanted to ask you about your tires. Yeah. You ran Ramblers.
I did.
Right. You ran 50s?
45s.
45s.
Yeah.
And I know they're...
So you know what happened at Rule of 3? On the same tires.
I don't. Okay. I don't know, and our listeners don't know.
Okay. So by... So Rule of 3 is in Bentonville. It's a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks prior to Unbound. More than twice as much climbing, half the distance of the 200. You want a tough race. That race is incredibly difficult. Third of it's pavement, third of it's single track, third of it's gravel. Whatever bike you have, take that bike. There's no perfect bike for it, right?
Every bike's the wrong bike.
Well, right. To me, if you don't care about how fast you're not placing, 29er. Yeah. The first year I did it on a 3-man team, did it on my cutthroat, not a single issue. Had a blast. Poured rain the whole day. This year I did it on my Warbird with 45s because I was going solo, wanted to go a little faster, see what I could do. Mile 40, I got my first puncture. Plugged that. Kept rolling. Another mile, I got another puncture. Then I got a sidewall tear. Then put my tube on. This was all within 3 miles of each other. Tube slashed, pulled out my patch kit, glue in my patch kit was dried out. Nothing else I can do.
Did you check it for thorns?
I did. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So what I'm getting at is in 42-ish miles, I had basically 4 flats on the same tire. And I thought, I had not gotten a flat in a race in 10 years. I defied the odds on that. Well, let's have another 10 years. So I went to Unbound. I'm like, I'm not going to freak out over it. I tried to get inserts in time, and I couldn't get them in time. Rode the same tires again. Not a single problem. Not a problem.
And that's. I didn't ask you all that to ask if you had tire issues. I wanted to know how happy you were with your tire selection.
Very.
And your tire pressure.
Yep.
And what was the gravel comp? Did you guys encounter anything super chunky?
Yeah.
Did y'all go over Texaco Hill?
I don't know.
Texaco Hill, top of Texaco Hill was the first oasis.
Yeah.
Okay. They did have.
I didn't look at the route.
They did have big banners at the bases of most of the major climbs, and I don't recall seeing a Texaco Hill sign, but obviously I think
it's a staple.
Okay.
I think they put it
okay.
in
I mean, it was. There's not a lot of high elevation there, but you can tell you were above a lot of other things. So that's probably what it was.
Yeah.
Where were we?
Tires.
Yeah. I ran tires a little lower. I typically make the mistake of going a little too heavy on the air and go a little overinflated, but I reduced them down a little bit. Gravel composition was a mix.
Yeah.
There's everything from the hard packed sandy kind of stuff to the almost like the landscaping fill gravel they put in parking lots that are,
like a 2x2,
golf ball size, but flat. Those were a little sketchy.
Yeah.
But they weren't
loose.
It was loose,
but
there wasn't enough for me to go, I should have made a different tire choice.
Right.
Just bike handling skills came in, and a lot of it was on some of the descents. Those descents were just amazing. I looked down. I think my top speed was maybe 35 on some of those descents.
Are people still slicing tires out there in the Flint left and right like they used to, or is tire technology in general to the point where everybody's staying together for the most part?
There were a lot of people on this. There were a significant amount of people on the sides of the roads, but I couldn't tell whether or not they were fixing a flat or pulling mud off at times. There was a lot of that.
There's always going to be punctures and situations like that.
But I didn't see any more than what I saw at Rule of 3. Rule of 3 just murdered tires this year.
Well, that single track section there, it just has a lot of tire slicers and stuff up there.
There were some, but most of it were on the sides of the gravel roads. Yeah.
So I'm assuming you were on the Warbird
I was on the Warbird,
as well.
Put the comfort sticks on. Was not going to ride the comfort sticks for 100 miles, but then I put them on that night. I took both my bikes. Okay. To be honest with you.
Okay. Good plan, actually.
Yeah.
As if you only have 2 bikes.
Well, I wasn't going to take my single speed.
I
wasn't down with that. I know.
Single speed might have been the way to go.
But now, I think, so here's the deal. Like my next Spinistry event, I may throw a 16 or 17 on my single speed. And
What is your single speed these days?
I have a Thai Stella.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, opted, okay, I'm going to do the 200. I definitely want to try. I had a loose goal of wanting to get in, not either before dark or sunset. Like I would like to beat the sun.
Yeah.
Right. Beat the dark. That was within the first 10 miles or 12 miles when you get to that mud, that was out.
Yeah.
Right. I rode the Warbird to get a little bit more speed. I knew the Cutthroat would be more comfortable, but it was at that point it was a crapshoot. So I just went with the Warbird and I had a great time. I did not have a major mechanical, but after that first mud section, I was having a very difficult time, shifting in and out of my big ring and small ring in the front. I have a 2x. After that first hill until I got to...
I'm a fan. I
disagree.
I have a 2x Warbird and I'm keeping my 2x set up.
I have a 1x on my
Cutthroat,
and I like the 2x. Yeah. I think that getting up and over bigger hills at reduced energy usage is a help in the long run. I'm not a pro. Those guys run 1xs, but I had a hard time shifting in and out. Matter of fact, to the point where I couldn't shift out of the small ring. So I rode about 45 miles in that small ring, which could have been a benefit.
I'm about to say, that's why you felt so fresh at the end.
Probably why.
Right.
Yeah. So I got into that first checkpoint and the Shimano guys there was just a bunch of mud caked in. There was no mechanical failure, but there was a bunch of mud caked in that the derailleur wouldn't shift back and forth.
So you have a 2x. What year's your Warbird?
It's a 22.
Yeah.
Last year.
Okay. So they're still making 2x.
Yeah. It's the 810.
Okay.
GRX.
Like I jokingly, bash on the 2x, but it's from a mechanical standpoint. I mean, it's just a point of failure. But
that is the reason why I bought that Cutthroat, because it is a 1x, and when I'm bike packing way away from home, one less mechanical issue to worry about. So that's the reason why I have that.
I mean, my Willits is a 2x, and I mean, I would on the regular go out and do like a training ride where I would literally stay in my small chain ring the whole time. And then I would go out and do training rides, but I would stay in my big chain ring the entire time. So, I mean, there's definitely, fresh legs come from small chain rings,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And I get it. So,
Yeah. I don't have a problem with it anymore.
yeah.
So yeah, what were we talking about? Tires, bike choice, put the comfort sticks on, used them
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt good.
Yeah. So it's good to stretch the back just to get down, get
Yep.
arrow and
One of the things I saw that I think people make a mistake of is they don't have them at the correct height. They want to look sleek.
Yep.
They want to look like the racer boys that can bend over and turn themselves into chameleon. What's the chameleon position or whatever?
They want arrow bars. They don't want comfort
Yeah.
sticks.
Put the spacers on.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm not a bike fit guy. There's a lot of people that are smarter than I am. But if you're comfortable in your drops and you go into your arrow bar comfort position and you move down, you're in the wrong spot. You want your armpits to be about the same height over your bars when you switch back and forth.
You want the same body position, basically.
Yeah. It's less about being tucked. You don't want to be in that tucked position on the gravel for very long. That when you're real tight, balled up like that.
Plus, you're putting way too much weight on your front end, and that's why a lot of people end up on the ground. So
you did hit the mud at mile 11. You were with the crowd, so you ended up walking it like most of the crowd.
Yeah.
What's your pedal shoe combination that you're dealing with that day?
Okay, so I opted for a stiffer sole, which I guess you could say was a mistake at that. I mean, I should have gone with the other one, but I didn't know we were going to have it that much walking. I opted for a stiffer sole, so I went with I have a Shimano RX-8s, super stiff. Great climbing shoe, not great at walking. I should have gone with, I'm a big fan of the Giro lace-ups, the VR90s. I think that's it's super comfortable, stiff enough sole that you get good power transfer, but you can walk in. Had just Shimano pedals.
Yeah, but your Shimano shoes have Velcro, not laces, right?
The ratchet.
Yeah.
One ratchet and one Velcro.
So did you take your shoes off at any point during the race?
No.
Not at any of the checkpoints?
No.
Okay.
Taking them off feels too good to put them back on.
Understood.
I took out my mud pick, and I did have to stop and pick out mud a couple times out of the shoe, but man, that stuff is. I brought just the Park Tool hook and brush. Yeah. The hook is not strong enough for unbound mud. It's really not. Like you take it and it just folds.
I think Rich Waldsmith said the same exact thing.
Rich the same thing.
Yeah.
It needs some reinforcement.
I have some.
Listen
cheap,
up, Park.
Yeah, listen up, Park. I have some cheap. Either it's a cheap off-brand I bought, or it's the Pedro's, whichever one is black, and the hook is not quite as curved. It's a lot thicker, and I should have brought that because it's a little stiffer. I just didn't think about how flexible it is.
That's a finish line.
Don't do what people tell you to do and bring a wooden stir stick.
Yeah,
those things are not strong.
No,
they will break, and I saw a lot of them break, and I saw people just when they see that they're already. Emotionally cooked, and they throw a fit.
That defeats them. Stuff like that will break you at that point.
Yes, I mean you're better off making something out of. I mean, hard plastic is what you want.
So
to do with.
You said you did the chamois butter group ride.
Yep,
pre-ride. Shout out to chamois butter.
Shout out.
Did you make the riders meeting as well?
I didn't. And now that I think about it, I don't even remember thinking about it.
Understood. Here's the reason I'm asking. So one of the big brouhahas about the mud was that Unbound. Some people say Unbound said they were going to change it and they didn't. Others say it was mentioned that it might be a possibility. Those are two different positions there. Did you have a perception of what?
Matter of fact, I didn't even know that.
You didn't even know reroute was a consideration of any kind.
Everything blew up a couple of days afterwards. I did try to follow. I followed them on. There's an Unbound discussion group on Facebook, and I kind of followed that. I would check in because a lot of people were talking about weather and different things. And even then, Friday night, I didn't see anything about the possibility of a reroute change.
Yeah.
And I don't, and this is my perspective. This is only my opinion. I don't care. Like, I get that. To me, that was, I know, but that was a part of the experience.
Yeah.
Even now, if they came back and said, would you have rather done it without the mud? Okay, maybe. But that's what I signed up for, man.
Yeah.
And I signed up to go out and do some hard shit.
As long as everybody has the same
But they
course.
don't. That's the problem. They don't have that.
And they don't have the same perception. And
no. I'm saying as long as everybody has to follow the same course. As long as they don't send half through and then go,
Right.
we're going to reroute, you know.
So, and I apologize. I'm trying to look at this from an old school gravel guy's perspective, recognizing there is a new school out there.
Yeah.
I think we all fall under that old school umbrella.
Yep.
So it's real easy for me just to knee jerk and say, well, what the hell do they think they were signing up for? It's real easy for us to go, that's the expectation, because that is where we're coming from. So I'm just trying to, people that might have those different opinions, I'm trying to get a better understanding of how that may have come about, why it came about, without just going, you had unrealistic expectations. I'll be perfectly honest with you. My general position is you had unrealistic expectations, but I'm not saying that on a condemnation standpoint.
No, I agree. I 100% agree.
Those are the same people.
And this could go back to what you were saying about the newer people in gravel. And it's not like, you guys have been doing it twice as long as I have. It's not like I've been doing it for 20 years like you have. But I guess people think that they're so used to having everything around them in their world customized to their liking that that's what their expectations are. Kevin, when you create a route, I don't think of it as you're making it for me. You're making a challenge for us to accept to go and do. Now, there's some considerations that you do. You want to make it fun. You want to make it safe, make it a challenge, make it doable within the time frame. But you're not,
no mistake, he's malicious about it.
And that's fine. But that's what I want. I want someone to kick my ass.
If you're ever riding a Spinistry course.
And you've never said, fuck you, Kevin. Then,
and you see a hill in the horizon, make no mistake, you're going over it.
He'll find the tallest hill to ride at the end of the ride. But that's my expectation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't sign up for it if it wasn't for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Stop thinking it's easy.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
If it were easy, it'd be a road race, right?
Embrace the suck.
Embrace it. It's type 2 fun. If you're not willing to do type 2 fun, this is not your sport.
That's exactly
And to me, a very small fraction of people are racing for a podium.
Yeah.
And within that small fraction, an even smaller fraction are the ones that actually have the possibility of doing it, right?
Yeah.
Of all those guys, unless it's a mechanical or a wreck, there's only 4 or 5 guys that you can name that are going to get up there. After that, if you're not one of those people, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right. Set your goals and that's fine. If you want to get to a certain distance, that's fine. But understand that distance comes with that time and that goal comes with a cost of how difficult it is.
Yeah. And a sacrifice of enjoyment too.
Yeah. Why are you not out there enjoying it?
Yeah.
Why are you mad?
Yeah.
Like you can get Kevin Lee type mad where it's like, of course he put this damn thing here in the middle. That's okay.
Yeah.
But I cannot say this for everybody because there was 1,000 people in line. It was the craziest thing. It looked like, the pictures of people climbing the last section of Mount Everest. And there's just that line. That's what it looked like. Grown men just whining and complaining. Way beyond what is acceptable.
I can empathize a little bit because it happened so early in the race, know? But I also understand Kevin's perspective on that discussion you were talking about. I think it's a great filter. Like, hey, if you've decided at this early of the race that you made a mistake, just turn around. You don't have to wait till mile 60 or 70 to go, what am I doing? You're at mile 11. You see what's going on. If you're going to bitch and moan and complain, just go back to the staging area.
I don't think, Kevin will probably correct me on this, but I don't think the race organizers owe us anything to make it easier for us.
Of course not.
I don't get that. And it's
a series of challenges to eliminate the weakest individuals.
It is.
That's by nature. That's what it is.
You've really hit on a key difference of, and I'm taking this to that higher level competitive group that's in Unbound now, the Lifetime Series type racers, the elite racers that were complaining about it. And I'll be honest with you, when I posted on Spinistry, it was directed more at the elite racers than just the everyday Joe that's showing up for their first gravel event. When I said high level racers and national press that are bitching about this route, it's like, What are you guys expecting?
Right.
If it's somebody, if it's somebody that's doing their first gravel event over 50 miles that rolled in from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, just for the sake of it. Okay. Hey, inexperience comes into play.
Sure.
But those high level racers, when DK first started, when Lifetime first got involved with it, when it evolved into Unbound at all three of those levels, it was overcoming adversity. That was what the race was about.
You guys didn't even have GPS, right? You had a paper map.
Yeah, not the first few years.
Yeah.
You had to have a physical computer that gave you your exact mileage, and you didn't even have the route. Like when you signed up for registration, they gave you a cue card, like a physical map, and then it had all your waypoints. And so you had to go, okay, I turned right on County Road so-and-so. I go 4.3 miles, and then I'm going to turn left on County Road so-and-so. I mean, it was... So navigation was a part of it too.
Yeah, the navigation skills, the nutrition skills, the hydration skills. Again, it wasn't about who was the best bike handler, fittest person to win the event. It was never about that. It was about, you've got 200 miles to overcome all of this shit. And some of this shit is it's like rule of three. You're never on the right bank. Well, when you're doing stuff like DK or Unbound or whatever we want to call it these days, your skill set is going to be subpar for one of those objectives compared to others. But then your own personal skill set might be higher than so it was the whole ball of wax was the challenge. It wasn't about, well, here's this high-end pro racer that's just, well, and you had to overcome riding in the crowd too. That was, I mean, that was part of it. It was like, you better show up on time if you're a fast person, you better show up on time and position yourself at the front of the corral.
Yeah.
Because if you have that extra cup of coffee or hang out at the Porta-John too long, you've got, 700 people to weed through.
I did like how they had sections where you placed yourself to sign up. If you, like, they had banners that said 14 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours, 17, right? And so that was, I kind of...
Where did you line up?
I put myself in the 17.
There you go.
I put myself at the front of the 17, but I wanted to shoot for 16. I didn't know,
right?
Honestly,
no, sure.
And my moving time was a little over 17.
Yeah.
So I mean,
if you had to go back and do it again, would you advance further up? Would you situate yourself in like the 15 hour?
Yes and no. I don't know how much. That is more to separate the mass start than it is to be an accurate perception of what you're...
I get that. The only reason I ask is because my mentality is it's easier to start at the front and gradually work your way back than it is to start at the back and gradually work your way up to the front.
Yeah, but that race is so long.
But then you're being a dick.
No.
Yeah. No. If 500 people falsely put themselves forward and filter back, then there's 300 people behind them. They're having to weed through those 500 people that accurately And I'm not saying you're a dick, even though you are.
I am. But when my mentality though is more there's better rabbits.
No, I get that. I get that.
15-hour mark.
But that's the yin and the yang of it.
Yeah.
If you place yourself accurately, that's from a promoter's perspective. That's the intention. Place yourself accurately, but also from a promoter's perspective. I know that there's going to be a good 25% people that put themselves way ahead of accurate placement, and they're the ones that end up making people crash as they filter back. That's what happens.
I'm not talking about slamming on my brakes to filter back. I mean, to me, it's I'm more apt to hold a wheel or hold a pace that's above my desire than I am to see someone in the distance and leapfrog up to them. So that's my mentality. I would much rather try to ride just above my level.
It is all about you, Brad. It is all about you.
Okay. Can we just end right there?
I think it comes down to what your goals are and how long the race was.
Sure.
There were times that I tried to get in get in a group because it's just efficient.
Yeah.
And I would hang on. And if they were rolling, end up being a little too fast, I didn't try to push myself to keep up with them. I went into it to have fun, but I had to manage what it was going to take to have said fun by managing my heart rate, making sure I wasn't doing stupid things like climbing hills that don't matter.
Yeah.
I will say one thing about riding in groups. So to reduce weight, I put my light in my second checkpoint bag. I didn't want to have because I have a really heavy bright light. I don't have a dynamo hub on my Warbird, so I put my heaviest, brightest light, and it's heavy. It's a brick. And so I put it in that bag, and I thought, I'll get the second checkpoint for dark. Duh. I did not.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting into, I was not the only person.
Mile 127?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. So I knew I was going to have to get in between some people that had lights and just hold on. And I did. There was a surprise water drop before the last checkpoint. In between the last water drop and the last checkpoint. I want to go back to that last water drop.
When you say water drop,
they had a neutral water station.
Okay.
That Unbound maintained.
Sponsored, yeah. Okay.
The first one was atop of Texaco Hill, just a big giant water vat, and they had spigots across. That's the one that the pipe broke, that people accused them of not having enough water, but apparently a pipe broke and they tried to salvage as much water. I don't know, that happened after I'd already passed. So
got there sooner.
Yeah. So let's talk about the second water stop.
Do you need to do your thing first?
No, we can keep going. That was a major dropout point for a lot of people. It was in, I think, Madison. I think it was the name of the town, maybe. I was at a church, and there were a lot of people sitting on the sidewalk, sitting underneath the church awning, wearing trash bags, shivering their asses off. They were done.
So this was after the rain?
The rain was letting up. Okay. It was still raining a little bit, but it wasn't pouring.
Okay. And this was mile what?
That was 124?
Okay, so this is
second water was 125, yeah.
This is the second checkpoint where you had your light.
No. It was neutral water, first checkpoint. Neutral water, second checkpoint. Okay. This was the second neutral water.
Okay.
The church were out there for a fundraiser. They were cooking hamburgers and hot dogs, and I ate a hot dog.
Yeah.
I hadn't eaten a hot dog in 5 years, but I wanted something salty. Yeah. Just poured mustard all over it, and man, it was delicious.
That mustard will resurrect you
too. My God, it was great. So, and there were a lot of people. There were people waiting in line for sad taxis to take them back. And some of them were going to be waiting a while because I heard them saying, like, sometimes it's 20 minutes between each truck or car.
So there was organized SAG?
You could apparently, there was a group that were selling wristbands that had a phone number on it that would come and get you at any point, but you had to buy that wristband, and I don't know how much it was. I think these,
talking about planning to fail.
I know. I know. I passed by a couple people wearing one.
This is my parachute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People think they need that for a safety net, but I think it's counterproductive for a lot of people.
I think it's just like front loading your out.
It makes it really easy to bail out.
The more ways you find to get out of something, the more likely you are to get out of it.
We're taking Caleb off.
Yeah,
no, it's fine. It's fine. So there's a lot at that point. I'm like, there's a lot of people quitting. Man, this is a good opportunity. I feel great. Like I'm going to be ahead of every single person.
Yeah.
Right. Someone was saying, there's another mud walking section that's like 3 miles long and it's like a mile and a half. I'm like, oh shit, I guess I got to do that again.
Yeah.
So, and then that's when I realized, oh shit, it's getting close to dark and I don't have a light. So I'm going to have to make sure I stay with a group. So I kind of stayed within a group. Like I kind of played my stealth mode. And then we got to that neutral drop. Somebody, I don't know. It had an Unbound decal on the cooler, I think, or it could have just been a nice guy. There were people who, I saw a couple of houses that had water hoses extended from their house to the road.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't use it because at that point I didn't need it.
Yeah.
We weren't muddy. So when we got to that neutral stop, there was about 7 or 8 of us. And I said, who has lights? Half people raised their hand. I said, who doesn't? Half of us raised our hand. I said, okay, we're going to do our best to, if you will allow us, we're going to ride in between you guys. And they're like, yeah, no problem. Man, that is the most concentrated, focused riding I've ever done.
Yeah.
We were averaging at least 17, 18 miles an hour. And I was in between someone shining a light behind me and from me and just focusing.
Yeah, there's no sleeping in that situation.
Oh, no.
You can't zone out.
No.
You can't do anything.
No, and the thing is you're so busy looking down at your wheel and the wheel in front of you, then you have to look up real quick to see what's ahead of whether or not this person's getting ready to move over left or right.
And how much time did you spend doing that?
An hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and I always talk in time frame as opposed to mileage.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that ultimately stuff like that, it's really more about the time
Yeah.
that you're dealing with issues.
100%.
Yeah.
So probably 15 miles or more.
Probably, yeah. I would imagine.
And that was all gravel.
Yeah. Until we got into that last town, which I think was Hamilton. There was not much pavement on this ride.
Yeah.
At all. Got into Hamilton, which is the last checkpoint. You go through a checkpoint going in and or a timer going in and going out. And when I came in, I heard someone say we have until I think 10 to leave. So got some food. They had a bike wash that people were spraying and they ran out of water. I think it was a vat with a pump on it or whatever. So I punched a bunch of holes in some plastic water bottles and we were spraying my drivetrain to get that cleaned off. Got my light on. And at that point, I was like, I got 40 miles. I got 5 hours to ride 40 miles. I'm done. This is great.
Yeah.
And
mailing it in.
Yeah. And I left feeling good. I had a bunch of chips and salty stuff. And I kept riding and I kept getting faster and faster to the point. And I typically do that on the longer the day you get over that hump of just exhaustion and your body decides to not fight you anymore, right? Your body's constantly saying, stop doing this, you idiot. You shouldn't do this. And then they realize, well, I guess he's too stubborn to stop. So and man, that last section, I averaged about 16. Not that I'm super fast, but having ridden 170 miles prior to that or whatever, 165 miles or whatever.
But did you encounter another mud section like those people were talking about?
Yeah, there were a few other. There were some there.
So did you have to walk any mud in the dark?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. I didn't have a helmet light and I had my light mounted on my bar. So I was carrying my bike and then holding the wheel with the other hand to try to shine it in front.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad, but it was bad enough that I had to stop probably 4 times to pull mud off.
You seen the snakes?
Did see a snake.
Yeah.
Yeah. No step.
Yeah. I almost
Rode right over the top of it.
I almost stepped on a corn snake when I was up there.
Yeah. I didn't see. I think this was a grass snake.
Yeah.
So yeah, then by that time I'm getting closer into Emporia. There's a guy that rode up to me and we were kind of chitty chatting. And this guy's done bikepacking trips all over the world, done Silk Road, done Atlas. Chatted with him for a while. He was a Canadian, so of course he was like the nicest person on the planet. So it was fun talking to him. That took about 30-40 minutes of time that just went by really fast of just having a friendly conversation. And he was doing it at single speed. Oh, wow. Right. So that was pretty cool.
Do you know what gear ratio is on?
He was on I think he said a 44-19.
Sounds about right.
Maybe. Yeah. I remember it being odd because he had such a big ring in the front. Yeah. One person I didn't want to point out, because I even made a comment about this on Facebook about someone talking about that ruined the vibe for people or whatever. There was a girl out there who was an adaptive athlete, amputee below the knee, and I've seen adaptive athletes that had a shoe on the bottom of their prosthetic when that shoe's clipped in. She had just the straight titanium rod, and at the bottom of that rod was a cleat. She probably had some kind of special adapt.
I've seen that before.
Yeah, and absolutely crushing it. And I was in a group with her, you'd pass and then they'd pass and then you'd pass and they'd pass. And every time someone passed her, she said, "Good job." Yeah. And man, that just fired me up. Yeah. And it's little small things like that. Yeah. To see her, she was probably mid-20s. Yeah. Right. Just in it, doing it. Yeah. I mean, this is way into the race. Good attitude. Great attitude. Yeah. Working her ass off. And to me, that's what makes me more irritated about all the people that complain about how, and I'm doing the quotes,
Air quotes.
for the single listener.
Air quotes warning.
Air quotes warning for all the people that thought it was hard. I'm like, what are you talking about was hard? This girl's out here kicking your ass.
It's perspective.
It's
a matter of perspective.
Yeah. That was probably one of my favorite things to see all day. To see someone just absolutely just crushing it like that.
Yeah.
And then you have people complaining that it was hard.
Yeah.
Getting into
It's supposed to be hard.
I know, right? That's why I think, yeah.
There's a total disconnect with those people that complain about stuff like that, though. I mean, they're used to just groomed, like perfect conditions. Those are the people that go, man, it's 40 degrees. I'm not riding today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different mentality.
Yeah, it's not Burger King, right? You can't. You can't have it your way.
And I agree there's a disconnect. I don't know what feeds that disconnect, I guess is what I'm getting at. Is it
people that have been pampered?
I think that's an overly simplistic view.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
kind of along the lines of that bully conversation we had that one day. I think there's people that are, like we've spoken about before, the fadness of gravel, the popularity of gravel, the national press of gravel doesn't get into that nitty gritty stuff. The national press of gravel talks about the elite racers and the big events and how cool this is. But then the national press are the ones that are saying, well, the Unbound organizers made a mistake doing it this way this time. So if these newer riders, without the realistic air quotes warning, perceptions of what the event, where are they getting they're getting their information from? I'm not going to name specific ones, but whoever the national press is around cycling and gravel events these days, that's their, perception is reality.
Yeah, that brings up a thought process, though. Has Unbound responded in any way to all of these complaints and whining and stuff?
I don't want to. I don't want to do this on a black and white basis. There may have been more that has come out. I know Chemo, whatever his name is, the Lifetime Fitness main guy for the competitive events, made a general statement of we're never going to make our routes easier.
That's what I was going to say. I think that's the position they should take, because
sort of thing.
Back to what you were saying about how they don't ever really say that it's going to be difficult. They don't come right out and say it. I think by holding their position and backing up what they did, that kind of helps to establish a precedent.
And the national press is tisking that position right now.
If they said that, I respect that.
Yeah.
I absolutely respect that.
Here we are. We're old school gravel people. So that's right in our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're in this age of, I'm sorry, I messed up. Let me apologize. But I think hold your ground and say, we ran the race we wanted to. If you don't like it, don't come back.
Yeah. Well, the conundrum of gravel is it's such a wide spectrum of riders.
Yeah.
You can go out there and you can, if you do enough races, gravel races, you can point out the mountain bikers. You can point out the guys that only ride gravel, and you can point out the roadies.
Yeah.
Within those groups are different levels. And
you're leaving out the
sets.
triathletes.
And the triathletes. I'm sorry. The triathletes. Yeah. Sure.
Those are the guys that bikes smell like ammonia.
The more, and I agree, I'm totally on board with gravel should be open and united to all different types of riders, because you can do so many things. It's not easy in what you do, the ride itself, but it's easily accessible. You don't need a mountain bike trail. You don't have to find a paved road that there's not a lot of cars on. There's inherently not a lot of cars on gravel, right? So it's accessibility is a lot easier. With that wide range of accessibility are so many variations of types of riders. The wider you cast that net, the more different types of people you're going to come in with, the more different types of opinions. So if you're saying this race is and gravel is for everybody, hold your position. on what gravel is. And I don't want to get into the whole spirit of gravel conversation. I hate it. That even when someone says the spirit of gravel, like it makes me nauseated. I don't even know what that means. Yeah. You're trying to place rules on something that you already say doesn't have rules, but yet you want a rule that's not a rule. Mm-hmm. I'm so tired of it. I think because it was such a wide range, a wide spectrum of riders, it's only if you were able to do the demographic of riders of type that they normally do and the types of complaints.
They all came from roadies.
I'm not going to say that.
I said it.
Okay, Brad said it. I was going to say that there was probably a focused area on a specific type of rider that
roadies.
have more heavily oriented towards one discipline than another?
I think so.
Okay.
I think.
I wouldn't. I mean,
that's a speculation.
Roadies. I mean, why are we scared to say that? I mean, roadies are the biggest complainers about everything, and everything has to be perfect. Okay. You know? I mean, and those are the guys that they just want to go fast. They don't stop and smell the roses. They don't enjoy the adventure. There's no adventure in road riding.
I won't say that, but I will say I will put my flag in the ground. Mm-hmm. The least amount of complainers are your bike packers, your adventure riders, and the ones that are used to getting their shit kicked. Yeah, because they enjoy it.
Right.
So I'm going to impose a caveat on Brad's labeling there myself. I think within air quotes warning the realm of roadies that gets divided up as well. There are definitely road-oriented riders that come into gravel that get it. But I think more of the traditional competitive type road racers, crit racer types, I think that might be more along the lines of who you're kind of describing as roadies.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of my best friends are roadies.
Yeah. But the strong roadies that I know as well, they mix it up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like cross training.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't want to say that all road riders are like that at all, because that's not true at all.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say the elite road racers or higher level road racers or stronger road racers that also happen to at least occasionally race mountain bikes get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The ones that never have been on a mile of single track don't. Yeah. The ones that have cyclocross in the mix are kind of 50-50 on that.
Yeah. Yeah. On participating in Rule of 3, you can see easily who has bike handling experience and skills.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even when I didn't.
Wow, and actually that may be bike handling. That may be the qualifier.
Is that it?
I think that might be.
Yeah.
Well, just and enduring like crazy stuff. I mean,
the small section of single track that was on Mid-South this year. When I got into it, I got up behind some people that were obviously road cyclists, which is fine. I'm not a fast guy. I'm stubborn and I'm strong. And I just blew past them on the single track, riding on the sides of the trail, like because they were literally
blocking the trail.
They were blocking the trail.
Yeah.
But once I got out of the single track and got a half mile up the road, they blew right past me.
Yeah.
All right. That was a telltale sign that it's about bike handling. They didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like I'm not downing it. I'm just making an observation.
And I guess what I'm kind of getting at is I think if that lack of bike handling confidence on the mixed terrain, for lack of a better term, is something somebody's overcoming, all those other adversities that we were talking about earlier, the lack of bike handling is something, or the lack of bike handling skills, where you may not even recognize it's a lack of bike handling skills. That's what your knowledge is. This is how it works. Mm-hmm. You're assuming everybody else is as uncomfortable as you are if you don't have that experience. And that's a constant pester in your head at that point. That is not just every mile. That's in every pedal stroke or every turn of the wheel. Mm-hmm. I'm uncomfortable doing this thing. That just, I think, might be an added. I'm not making excuses. I'm saying, okay, maybe I can, because my empathy skills are weak to begin with. I'm trying to expand them. And how better to expand empathy than to empathize with those damned roadies? You know?
But it's the same thing like at Watchdog Challenge and BT Epic and you know, these marathon distance mountain bike races where you have people that are super fit but don't have any handling skills. Mm-hmm. And so on the road opening sections, they're just blazing, and they get to the single track first, and they just muck it up. Yep. And then here you come through, and you can actually ride through a rock garden, and you got people that are like indignant about blocking the trail, and you're like, ride her back, and they're like, they think that they're perfectly okay to be there because they don't think you're going to be able to ride it.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I've had that happen multiple times. I had a girl yell at me because I rode right by her. And she's walking, and she's like, "Well, you could have, and I was like, "What? You're walking. I'm riding. You should yield to me." You know?
Well, but don't assume that they know that. I mean, we're going to go down a whole nother bunny trail if we start getting down into mountain bike etiquette.
Like, common sense dictates that if you're hold up. Common sense dictates in any situation, if you're riding on a confined trail and you're walking or working on your bike, you get over and yield to riders.
You'd be surprised.
I was about to say, common sense is not so common.
I get that, but I mean, for the most part, I would say a strong 75% of people understand that. I was trying to be generous.
That's generous. Yeah. Over 50%, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Well,
if you're looking to improve your handling skills on a drop bar, I'm going to say one word and we'll move on. Underbike.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
I've been not focusing on that, but like that's been a blast for me. I haven't ridden my mountain bike a lot this year.
Yeah.
Because everything I can do on my mountain bike, I pretty much can do on my Cutthroat. And I love getting my gravel bike out, whether it's my Warbird or Cutthroat, riding to Knob Hill or riding to North Shore.
That transcends this whole conversation. I mean, basically, like, if you take the adversity that you go through on doing something like an Unbound and apply it to your daily life, everything gets easier.
Yeah.
You know, if you take riding, underbiking, and apply it, now all of a sudden you're on a capable bike for the right terrain, then it's easy. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, always if you're doing something harder than it needs to be, it makes everything pale in comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
I mean, kind of along those lines, you know, we did our first beginner gravel clinic this past weekend, and the people that showed up for it were people that have done gravel events. They've done some Spinistry events. They've done gravel locos, and fantastic crowd. Make no mistake about it. But one of my primary tips for them, particularly if you're coming from a road background, is, we were at River Legacy. Let's go ride the River Legacy single track on gravel bikes. Let's go ride the double track section on the backside of the trail. That's the maintenance road. And then the next day we rode the Fort Worth Trinity Trails and took in all the double track sections and whatever sketchy sections we could take in there. When we were hopping across the grass from the paved trail to the gravel and back. And all of that stuff put together over just 2 riding sessions, those people said, I had never even thought about riding like that. I didn't even, the double track was overwhelming to them from with their road background, and they've ridden Spinistry events, they've ridden gravel locos and some other stuff. They hadn't even considered riding double track. And
you don't have to choose a line when you're on groomed pavement.
And that was exactly...
You can choose your line on something that's 16 inches wide. Think of the possibilities on something that's 16 feet wide.
That was the biggest feedback, that what we take from a mountain biking background of, I'm going to fall back this far from the person in front of me, watch how they take the line through this sketch section, either say that's the right way to do it, or they're going all over the place, I'm going to go a different way. They're just used to focusing on the wheel right in front of them. And they naturally had to fall back and watch people in front of them. And they said, that was the most fun I've had on the bike. Because they weren't riding wheels, they were riding the line.
Yeah.
God, this is so hard for me to even put myself into because I'm so far removed from that thought process.
Ding. Yeah.
But that's a huge gap.
Yeah.
It's a gap that can be easily closed too.
Yeah.
Just by going out and doing
Just
it
an
and
awareness.
realizing this is how you read lines. This is how you navigate around terrain. It builds confidence and the handling skill.
Yeah.
Confidence is a lot of it too.
Oh, and
Because if you ride something too slow, you're going to put yourself in a dangerous position.
But that's a really good training tool as well as riding stuff extremely slow. I mean, it makes you think about how your bike handles and everything. It's a great training tool.
I was taking them to as many hard switchbacks, uphill, sketchy, but it was like gear down now, giving them a heads up. And after 2 of those, they knew what gear down meant.
Yeah.
I just hadn't thought about all that in so long. Like it's literally like second nature, you know?
And that's my point.
Yeah.
From our mountain biking background, which the reality is, and if you listen to the most recent Guitar Ted podcast, he talks along the same lines. When gravel first came about, it was primarily mountain bikers and 24-hour racers that were getting into it from the endurance standpoint of things. Some older road riders that weren't really competitive in the road scene anymore, but they still wanted ultra endurance training. And that was a large chunk of the gravel population, probably up till 2015, 16.
Yeah, and then it got
then the road racers started getting involved with it, and they discovered gravel, and they discovered the things we're talking about is kind of second nature to us were things they picked up really quickly. And that, here's where it's different from what we're used to. Yeah. So they had a very narrow skill set to focus on to expand it into gravel. Yeah. But from like 2018, 19 on, we're getting a lot of people that they're basically starting out in gravel. Yeah. That's how they're getting into adult cycling.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So they don't have the road endurance background. They don't have the mountain biking background. So they're having to learn road skills, nutrition, endurance, bike handling, navigation, all of that from the get-go.
Yeah. If only those orange arrows were easier to read.
When are they going to start blinking?
Possibly at the Midnight Massacre. I've considered it. Yeah. They've got those little LED diode things.
Maybe I do single speed on Midnight Massacre.
That'd be fun. What year was it that Russ Walker started showing up to Spinistry events from Louisiana?
12.
Yeah, because he was just straight roadie.
Yes.
I mean, and just all horsepower, no handling skills, and no navigation skills.
Yes, and that's why he lost a couple races because of that.
Yeah,
because he just blew through turns. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think he finally won when he basically drug Dromgoole along with him.
Yeah, he used Dromgoole up. Yeah,
he used Dromgoole up, but he used Dromgoole as his Garmin. Basically, was what he was doing.
But he was also drafting off of Dromgoole and making Dromgoole do a lot of the work. And then finally, he said, "Okay, I got it." And
Once it got down to the last turn, okay, bye.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What did you just say? Oh, Midnight Massacre. When is Midnight Massacre?
August 5th
or 4th. Yeah, 5th.
Whatever that Saturday is that week.
I'm going to Post Malone, brother.
What?
Yeah, I'm taking my family to go see Posty.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Understandable.
Only other fun, eventful thing, getting into the town, I heard some kids yelling on the side of the road, and it was some high school kids drinking cheap beer. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I got time for a beer.
There we go.
So I pulled over, and they were deep in their cup. Mm-hmm. Right. So,
and how far out of town are you? You're
5 miles.
You're sniffing this finish line at this point.
I'm on pavement. I'm in town.
Yeah. How good does that pavement feel? You know,
it feels like you're twice as strong.
Yes.
Are you finishing from the north or the south or the east or the west?
You come in from the south.
Come in from the south because it finishes very much like mid-south. You come in through the campus. Yeah. They route you through the campus. So they're yelling and screaming, and I pull over and they hand me a beer, and I said, "No, punch the bottom." And they're filming, and they punch the bottom, and I shotgun that beer, and then I just throw it in the air. I'm having more fun than they are, and they're losing their shit, right?
Yeah.
That was probably the funnest.
Yeah.
It was something just silly and stupid like that. Just, it makes you feel
Well, that's like
like you're having a good time in your life, and then got back on the bike and chased down I'm not strong, you know that. But I chased down like 20 people.
Yeah.
It was because I was having so much fun.
Yeah.
I wasn't suffering. I wasn't complaining. I wasn't having a bad time. It was just
but see, that's
hammer it out.
That's
just
the
the fun
single
of it.
speed mentality right there. Like,
I noticed some
the
of
beer,
that. Yeah.
Like every time, we go do Watchdog Challenge or BT Epic and they have whiskey hand ups and stuff. It's the single speeders stopping to do that stuff.
I don't know if I could do the whiskey. That may be a little too strong for me, this old guy, but
it's not that bad.
But a Keystone Light was pretty easy.
Yeah. I mean,
we're
the
probably
roadies aren't stopping him for that. That was my point.
We're probably getting close to single speed fad coming back again. Timing's about right for that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a fad. I think it's just a different mentality.
No, it was definitely a fad. I mean, it was.
Are you talking about specifically for gravel or just in general?
In general. In general. I mean, single speeding was much more popular 10, 15 years ago than it is now.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if cyclists dictate this or if the cycling industry dictates this, but, back 15 years ago, you could walk into RBM and buy 5 different single speed models straight off the shelf. Now you almost have to go a custom route.
That was the bicycle industry reacting to the fad.
The market's they're going to adapt to what's going on.
People keep trying to turn it's getting fewer and fewer each year, but that evolution period 17 to 20 for gravel. There were so many people that were saying, "Oh, it's just the bike industry driving this fad." No, it was
people going out and doing it.
It was people riding gravel that got the bike industry to start putting out gravel bikes.
Yeah.
And it's even bigger now. Like I was watching highlights from Sea Otter this year, and that seemed to be the overall. Like, there was one of the guys that I follow. He interviewed people. We talked about this before, but. He was interviewing people and like, what are things you don't see going away in cycling? And almost unanimously, it was gravel, unpaved or,
Well, that goes back to what I said about just the wide spectrum of riders, because you can be all the different types
you can
and
be
still
any
do
of
it
these people
at some level.
Yeah.
You can go and you can do it.
Now, here's why I think single speed coming back is an uphill battle. But it's like we talk about literally week in and week out on this show, one way or another. Is the lack of standardization.
Yeah.
When we started getting into single speed, you could take any old frame, any old wheel set, any old spare parts you had, and start building up a single speed.
And now you have people still changing stuff up. Like Salsa's now with their new Fargo, I read the other day, is getting away from Super Boost. So they're going back to 148 on the rear end. Why can't we just leave stuff alone?
Well, a lot of the Canyon bikes still have the through axle.
Yeah.
Their higher end bikes have through axle. I noticed. I saw a lot of Canyons out there.
What do you mean through axle? You mean quick release?
Quick release.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Well, so now you're touching on another one of my pet peeves and something we talk about almost every week. And this goes hand in hand with that inexperienced, newer rider thing is there's a lot of people that are buying mail order bikes, internet bikes that really have no business.
Yeah.
They need to be working with a shop. And I get it. I get it. The perception of, well, I can buy this bike for $2,000 online that, I can't find anything for less than $3,000 at a shop that's comparable. But the reality is you're going to buy that $2,000 bike and you're going to buy another $1,000 in parts because it's not the bike you really needed.
Or every time you go in and need an adjustment or something slightly tuned, you're going to pay a minimum $75.
You're going to pay $75. Yeah.
Whereas if I don't know this, I don't know this to be fact, but most bike shops, if you buy a bike from them, they're going to adjust
minor adjustments are part of the deal.
Yeah.
And particularly if you bring in a box of tacos or a 6-pack of beer.
And nothing is better than a relationship with a bike shop.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, it is
1,000%.
It should be in the manual, should be in the brochure.
Yeah.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. My new bike that I just finally put together, I had the opportunity to do that bike directly through the company, and it was a really good deal. And I like their bikes. I like Revel bikes a lot. But it was like, no, as much as I would really like to have that bike,
Yeah.
I've got my relationship with my shop. And lo and behold, my shop became a Revel dealer. It's like, oh, okay, Clarence, please order this right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
May I have another? And I do want another, but that's down the road. Anything we missed? What's on your list, Khaled? You put together a list of topics.
Oh, yeah. Let me look at my list here. I think we covered most of it. Just obviously, I got in and out of order all over the place.
Well, welcome to our conversation.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up this conversation, we didn't even get to the part that I want to hear all about.
Okay.
You finish the race.
Yeah.
You put your bike down, or you hand it off to somebody, or whatever.
I wished I did.
You take your helmet off. What are you doing?
I will say one thing. Nobody from Unbound is listening, but if they are, turn the damn lights off at night when you cross the finish line. When you go through the finish line, those lights are so bright, I could not see anything past the light, and actually slowed down going through because it was blinding.
It's for the gram.
Yeah.
Everybody wants their pictures.
It's so close. I could. There were two guys at distance in front of me. I saw them go through, and I thought, I sure hope they're out of the way. We'll find out soon.
Yeah.
I got off and came through, and they had these little. They looked like metal koozies for a skinny beer, or for like a beer bottle or a seltzer, like this little skinny metal flask thing that had Unbound on it. And I was like, I don't have a place to put that. I'm not.
Yeah.
They were giving that out, and then they had a bike wash set up, and I waited my 5 minutes, washed my bike off, my shoes off, and then I started freezing. That's when that was the first time I had any physical reaction to the environment. That ride back, matter of fact, that was the most uncomfortable part of the race, was riding back, freezing and shivering to the half mile to the dorm.
What was the air temperature?
55.
So when you washed your bike and went straight back to the dorm, there's no sandwich or food or beer?
Yeah, they gave you you know me, I don't like hanging around.
Yeah, I know.
The bottom of this is interesting. The bottom of your number plate, you could tear it off, and that was your drink or your food coupon. And they had like one or two food trucks, I think, that you could turn that in. But
that's pretty smart.
It was a burrito truck. It just didn't.
Yeah.
They
didn't have enough vegan options for you.
Yeah, they didn't have enough tofu.
And what time of night was it?
I rolled in at 1.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I rode back, and I think I took like a 25-minute shower because I had to get in the shower with my kid on because it was just so much mud. Mm-hmm. Like it was amazing. And then I got cleaned up and made some food and watched something on Netflix for about an hour, wound down, and I never felt like destroyed or crushed or like I said, just the shivering from the bike wash was like that did me in.
Yeah. That was probably being caloric deficient too.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. And then went to bed. Got up next morning, packed and came home.
Yeah.
If I have the opportunity, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Sign up for something hard and go do it, and don't expect anything less.
Yeah. Any interest in the XL?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if Peter can do it,
well, here's the thing with the XL. This is where the mud starts. I know Kristen Legan, who won the women's. I talked to her husband, and she walked 11 miles in the mud. Mm-hmm. That's a long walk.
It is.
It's a lot of walking, and she still did it in like 26 hours.
Yeah.
Insane.
That is insane.
Obviously, if I do it, it's for the adventure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested in it.
You'll have 1.5 more times stories to tell.
1.5 more. More shotgun beers.
Did you get a chance to check your list? Make sure we hit all of your...
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was it, pretty much. It was good. Go do it. Sign up for it.
Anything else, Bradley?
I think that's it. I'm still struggling with like why people whine and complain, but I know that those people are always going to be out there. That's
the difference between the spectrum of riders. We don't understand it.
Yeah.
I just don't, man.
I don't understand bank robbers either. So, I don't get it.
I get it. I don't get that it's a bright move, but I it's where the money is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying throughout, life, there's always things that I don't understand, but I acknowledge they exist. And I don't know why people would go do 200 miles of gravel and not expect it to suck at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, walking through mud is a big bag.
Well,
of
yeah,
stuff.
I mean, I didn't enjoy that part.
Yeah,
It wasn't
right.
fun.
Nobody does. I mean, we did the same thing the first year I went to try. I went and tried. I think it was either 11 or 12. I think it was 11. And I can't remember what mile it was, and then it ended up hailing on us. There was a tornado on site or on course. And I made it to like mile 136. And I get there, and Shannon and Koshin are sitting on the bed of the pickup drinking a cold beer. I'm like, I just got through walking 5 miles in the mud. I was like, y'all got another beer? And I sat there and watched 5 people shear off their derailleurs. I mean, like almost in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I think this is when I call it. It was at mile 136. And I was just like, done.
We're done.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right.